Good morning, Scott here, known as Cantaloupe to some online, and I'm bringing a video to you on a subject that's interesting to me. It might be of interest to you or someone you know, and I want to talk about clues, with special emphasis on money and commerce. I think at some point in human history, I'm guessing there was a debate or a question about the propriety of commerce in general. I think that this was answered by the philosophies of capitalism and communism and the various spin-offs thereof. I think the debate was never sufficiently answered because we still have parties who don't agree on the subject. And I just want to look at the clues in this video in a few minutes. There are clues, it turns out. There are quite a few clues if you look at money and commerce, such as when you bring something to market, like a good, a product, or a service, goods and services, maybe you've heard of those things. You effectively randomize the access to those things in a commercial environment. When money is a proxy, when money is used to exchange goods and services, you randomize access to everything that can be for sale. So that's one clue for you. What does random access do? Well, it can be good or bad depending on what you're selling, right? So we have this enormous framework of laws to help mitigate the problems that are caused by random access commerce. Of course, there are problems with questionable items or sensitive items or potentially dangerous items such as drugs or alcohol or weapons or anything that requires a degree of proficiency and responsibility to use. So here's another clue that a framework of rules and litigation practices are required in order for commerce to even exist. It precipitates this stuff. It creates the opportunity and the need for this stuff. Okay, so another clue is employment, right? And employment is such a common household idea that in this part of the world, it's silly to think that you might not need to be employed for some reason, that anybody would have an objection to the concept of employment. But here's an idea. Think about it this way, just as a thought experiment, if you will, that you have a choice to make when you deal with other people in the capacity of some project or a job or a thing that needs to get done. You're building something or producing something of necessity. You can do one of two things with people, and this is what people aren't told. You can either employ them, which is what we do, or you can empower them. What's the difference? And there is a difference. Turns out there's a huge difference. Employing somebody makes them a function of you, makes them a function of your organization or your business, your company, if you will. It makes them a dependent and subservient to the structure. Whether it's a person or a whole group, the business itself, they become a function of that. Whereas empowerment would keep them as a function of themselves. This is a fundamental difference. You have to do one or the other. It's not both. And we misrepresent, I think we in this part of the world, everybody misrepresents what employment is actually doing. We use the word employment when we mean to say empowerment, but we're not doing empowerment at all. We are actually just forcing people largely at gunpoint if they're not independently wealthy, retired, underage, or disabled. Then they have to work at gunpoint. So what we do is we say, okay, well then you get employed, and that is your unique brand of empowerment that you can get in this part of the world. So we're going to call it empowerment, but really it's the opposite. It's the opposite. So you have to choose. And final point about this one: when you deal with other people in the capacity of a project, there's another clue. The clue is that it may or may not be an essential project or business. You've heard of essential businesses, and the way you can tell is if somebody needs to participate in it, if they want to participate in it, if they would be personally motivated to do it regardless of compensation. If it was a mutually beneficial project, that is, then empowering them and collaborating with them, splitting proceeds in the sense of not making them a slave to the organization, but making them a partner of the organization. See, there's two different things. And yes, we do have levels of involvement here. In fairness, we have partnerships. We used to have an officially recognized system of partnerships where you can make partner, but you have to like work your way up. And some, law firms have this. The idea is where you're empowered as a peer versus as a slave or an employee of the organization. So it's just another clue. I'm saying look at all the clues surrounding these ideas, these economic ideas, capitalism, communism, and what is the trade-off of randomizing access, of forcing everybody into a position of subservience, unless they're an owner of the company, so to speak. Well, you end up with some major problems. When people are forced into slave labor, they get very angry. Their quality of life suffers, and that is a circular problem. When you have ghettos, it affects everybody. You end up spending all your time trying to catch up with your debts. You end up spending all your time, even as a wealthy person, trying to address the problems that are being created at the same time as your wealth, whether they want to admit it or not. So it's simple to me. I already know the answer, and I'm just trying to explain how I got to the answer. I'm looking at the clues. There are plenty of clues that show random access is inappropriate in so many ways, and forcing people into slave labor by employing them, normalizing the idea of employment, and using it when you want to say empowerment, but you're not able to. These are problems. These are big, big problems, and nobody wants to talk about it, apparently, because our authorities, God bless them, are raking in the money from tax dollars and, corporate profit, right? Owners are raking in corporate profit, government employees are raking in tax dollars, and they're providing the appearance of services. But I think that veneer is wearing a bit thin at this point. I'm comfortable making this video because it's pretty plain that it's not working very well for a lot of people. Here's your problem. I like to put my finger on the problem if I can. And in this case, it's random access by way of commerce and employment when you should be empowering people. So if you agree or disagree, reach out with questions or comments to whitehotrobot@gmail.com. Thank you.